When you buy a bottle of Dior Sauvage, you are not paying for ingredients. You are reimbursing the brand for Johnny Depp's $20 million contract. You are funding a billboard in Times Square, and you are getting a bottle of cheap chemicals as a souvenir. Whether you're looking at Tom Ford, Creed, or Chanel, the reality is the same. That $300 price tag is a lie. The fluid inside that glass bottle costs less to manufacture than a fast food cheeseburger. Think about the absurdity of this purchase. When you buy a luxury handbag, you walk away with high-grade leather and metal hardware. When you buy a Swiss watch, you own gold, steel, and complex mechanical gears. But when you buy a designer perfume, you are walking away with a mixture of industrial alcohol and tap water. The industry calls this liquid the juice, and in a standard $100 bottle of designer fragrance, the actual value of that juice is often less than $2. This is not just a markup, it is robbery. The story of rare flowers picked by monks in the mountains is a marketing fabrication. The reality is a glass bottle, a cardboard box, and a massive corporate machine designed to extract maximum profit from a product that is mostly ethanol. This is the story of the Great Perfume ripoff. It is the story of how a few massive conglomerates took a product made of cheap laboratory chemicals, wrapped it in a lie, and convinced the world that it was the ultimate luxury. To understand the scale of this insult, we have to look at the raw chemistry. Perfume is not magic. It is a simple mixture of three things: alcohol, water, and essential oils. The alcohol is ethanol. It is the exact same stuff found in cheap vodka, just denatured so you cannot drink it. It costs pennies per gallon. Water is free, so the only real cost is the oil. The brands want you to believe that this oil is precious. They put out press releases about harvesting rose cenifolia in May in the fields of France. They talk about jasmine from India and oud from the deepest jungles of Southeast Asia. Real natural ingredients are indeed expensive. A kilogram of real rose absolute can cost $5,000. A kilogram of real orris butter can cost $50,000. But your perfume does not contain those things. If it does, it contains them in trace amounts. A literal drop. Just enough so that the legal department can put the word rose on the box without getting sued for false advertising. The vast majority of the liquid in that bottle is synthetic. Synthetics are molecules created in a laboratory. They are chemical mimics. Instead of crushing 1,000,000 rose petals to get a tiny vial of oil, a chemist in a white coat mixes petrochemicals together to create a molecule that smells like a rose. It is indistinguishable to the average nose. It is consistent. It lasts longer on the skin. And most importantly, it is dirt cheap. A kilogram of synthetic rose scent might cost $50. A kilogram of natural rose oil costs $5,000. The shareholders at L'Oreal and Estée Lauder are not choosing the natural option. They are choosing the cheap option and charging you the natural price. The industry tries to rebrand synthetic as modern or futuristic. But in reality, synthetic often means industrial waste. Many of the most popular scents in the world are derived from crude oil. When you smell vanilla in a designer scent, you are almost certainly smelling vanillin. This is a compound that can be derived from wood pulp or petrochemical byproducts. When you smell musk, you are smelling galaxolide. This is a synthetic polycyclic musk. It isn't harvested from an animal. It is produced by the ton in industrial vats that look like oil refineries. It is a chemical sludge that smells clean. There is nothing inherently unsafe about these chemicals. They are stable. They save nature from being over-harvested. But it is a scam to sell a bottle of $50 laboratory chemicals for $300 by pretending it is a bouquet of rare flowers. But the chemistry is only the first layer of the lie. The second layer is the brand itself. Most consumers assume that when they buy a bottle of Gucci perfume, the Gucci fashion house made it. You picture the fashion designer in Italy mixing potions in a studio. That is a complete fabrication. In 99% of cases, the fashion brand has absolutely nothing to do with the perfume. They just license their name. The perfume industry is actually controlled by a tiny handful of massive conglomerates. Companies like Coty, L'Oreal, Estée Lauder, and Parfums. These giant corporations go to a fashion house and offer them a deal. They say, "We will pay you millions of dollars to use your logo." Then, the conglomerate handles everything. They design the bottle. They hire the factory. They make the juice. Gucci does not make Gucci perfume. Coty makes it. Prada does not make Prada perfume. L'Oreal makes it. Tom Ford does not make Tom Ford perfume. Estee Lauder makes it. It is the same liquid, made in the same factories, by the same handful of Swiss and American chemical companies like Givaudan, Firmenich, and IFF. These chemical giants are the real puppet masters. They employ the noses, the master perfumers who actually design the scents. But the tragedy is that these artists are effectively handcuffed. They are given a brief by the marketing department of the conglomerate. The brief does not say make something beautiful. It says make a juice that smells like the top-selling perfume from last year, but make it 20% cheaper to produce and make the top notes sweeter so teenagers will buy it at the airport. The perfumer has a strict budget. They are told they can only spend $10 per kilogram on the oil. That is a starvation budget. It forces them to use cheap, harsh synthetics instead of smooth, expensive naturals. This is why so many modern perfumes smell exactly the same. They are all using the same cheap palette of ingredients, chasing the same market trends, produced by the same 3 corporations. You are paying for the illusion of choice. Now, let's look at the packaging. The bottle is heavy. The cap clicks with a satisfying magnetic snap. The box is wrapped in cellophane. Surely this costs money? Yes, the packaging costs more than the liquid, but not that much more. A nice glass bottle, produced in bulk in China or France, might cost $2 or $3. The pump mechanism is 50 cents. The cardboard box is pennies. So, let's do the brutal math on a typical $100 bottle of designer fragrance. The retail price is $100. The retailer, which is Sephora, Macy's, or the duty-free shop, takes about $40 to $50 of that margin immediately. They have to pay for the rent of the mall and the staff. That leaves $50 for the brand. Out of that $50, the cost of goods sold, which is the juice, the bottle, and the box, is maybe $10 maximum. That leaves $40 of pure gross profit per bottle. So where does that money go? Why is the price so high? It goes to the celebrity tax. The perfume industry spends more on advertising than almost any other industry on earth relative to the cost of the product. They have to, because unlike a phone or a car, perfume does not do anything. It has no function. You cannot see it. So they have to sell you a hallucination. When you see a commercial for Dior Sauvage starring Johnny Depp, or a commercial for Chanel starring Brad Pitt, or a billboard with Zendaya, do you know who is paying for that? You are. These celebrities do not get out of bed for less than $5 or $10 million, sometimes more. When you buy that bottle, you are directly reimbursing the brand for Johnny Depp's paycheck. You are paying for the private jet that flew the model to the shoot. You are paying for the billboard in Times Square that costs $50,000 a month. The juice inside the bottle is just a souvenir. It is the physical token that allows you to participate in the marketing fantasy. You're buying a ticket to a movie, and the perfume is just the popcorn. And this leads us to the most cynical strategy in the business, the flanker. Have you ever noticed that a brand will release a perfume, say Cool Water, and then a year later release Cool Water Intense, then Cool Water Sport, then Cool Water Elixir, then Cool Water Perfume? These are called flankers. Creating a new perfume from scratch is risky. You have to trademark a new name. You have to design a new bottle shape. You have to launch a new campaign. It costs millions. It is much cheaper to just recycle the old one. They take the same bottle, paint it a darker shade of blue, add a tiny bit more vanilla or ambroxan to the formula, and slap the word intense on the box. It costs them almost nothing to develop. It is the copy and paste method of product design, but it takes up more shelf space in the store. If a brand has 10 flankers on the shelf, they push the competitors off the wall. It creates a wall of brand dominance. They are selling you the same song, just remixed, over and over again. And often, the intense version is not even stronger. It just has heavier bass notes. It is a psychological trick to make you think you are getting more value. But the biggest trick of all is the concentration lie. You see terms like eau de toilette and eau de parfum. You assume these are regulated scientific terms. They are not. Logic dictates that the parfum should be the most expensive because it has the most oil, and it is. Brands charge double for the parfum version. But here is the catch. There is no legal regulation for these terms. A brand can label a fragrance eau de parfum even if it only has 10% oil. They can label it intense even if it is weaker than the original. The terms are marketing gibberish. Furthermore, a higher concentration does not always mean it lasts longer or smells better. Sometimes, if you put too much oil in a solution, it becomes heavy. It doesn't project or fly off the skin. A cheaper eau de toilette with lots of alcohol might actually smell stronger to the people around you because the alcohol evaporates quickly and carries the scent into the room. So when you pay an extra $50 for the parfum version, you are often just paying for a label change and a slightly thicker liquid that sits close to your skin and disappears just as fast. This brings us to the issue of performance and fixatives. Why do some cheap perfumes disappear in an hour? And why do some expensive ones disappear too? It comes down to the base notes. In the old days, perfumers used animal ingredients to anchor the scent. They used ambergris from whales. They used civet from cats. They used deer musk. These were heavy molecules that trapped the lighter flower scents and held them on the skin for 24 hours. But today, we use synthetics. The most famous modern fixative is ambroxan. It is a synthetic replacement for whale ambergris. It smells salty, musky, and like skin. It is incredibly powerful. If you smell a fragrance like Sauvage or Baccarat Rouge 540, that nuclear power that fills the room is ambroxan. But ambroxan costs money. Cheap perfumes skimp on the fixatives. They give you a blast of citrus top notes like lemon and bergamot that smell great for 5 minutes. But citrus molecules are light. They evaporate instantly. Without a heavy dose of expensive fixatives to anchor them, the scent vanishes. This is why the first spray at the store is a trap. Brands design perfumes to smell amazing for the first 2 minutes. They load up the top notes. They know that you will spray it on a paper strip, sniff it, and make a buying decision instantly. They don't care what it smells like 3 hours later. They engineer the scent for the sale, not for the wear. You buy the bottle because of that sparkly opening. You get home, wear it to dinner, and by the time the appetizers arrive, you smell like nothing. You have been tricked by the volatility of the molecules. So, how do you beat this system? You have to leave the department store. In the last 20 years, a rebellion has started. Small independent brands, known as niche perfumery, are rejecting the corporate model. Houses like Tower Perfumes, Zoologist, or artisanal makers. These brands are often run by the perfumer themselves. There is no marketing department. There is no celebrity face. There is no TV ad. Because they don't spend millions on Natalie Portman, they can spend money on the juice. A niche perfume might cost the same as a designer perfume, maybe $150 or $200. But the cost breakdown is totally different. Instead of the juice costing $2, it might cost $20 or $30. They use real rose absolute. They use real sandalwood. They use weird, risky ingredients that L'Oreal would never approve because they are too challenging for the mass market. When you buy a bottle from an indie maker, you are paying for the art. You are paying for high-quality materials. It is like buying a meal from a chef-owned restaurant versus buying a frozen dinner from a giant conglomerate. But even the niche world is being corrupted. The big corporations saw that niche was cool, so they started buying them. Estée Lauder bought Le Labo and Frédéric Malle. L'Oréal bought Atelier Cologne. Puig bought Byredo. As soon as the big corporation takes over, the cost-cutting begins. The fans notice it immediately. They reformulate the juice. They dilute the expensive ingredients. It is the vampire effect. The corporation drains the blood of the authentic brand to feed the shareholders. They trade on the reputation of the past while selling a diluted product in the present. So you need to be careful. Just because it is expensive and niche doesn't mean it is safe. This leads us to the most effective way to hack the system: the clone houses. We have to talk about brands like Armaf, Latifa, or Montagne. These are companies, often based in the Middle East, that do not care about copyright because you cannot copyright a smell. They take a popular designer scent, like Creed Aventus or Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. They run it through a machine called a gas chromatograph. This machine breaks down the liquid and tells them exactly what molecules are inside. Then, they reconstruct it. Because they don't pay for the fancy bottle, and they don't pay for the marketing, they can sell a scent that is 95% identical to a $300 fragrance for $30. The industry hates them. They call them thieves. But from a consumer perspective, they are heroes. They expose the markup. If a company in Dubai can sell a bottle for $30 and still make a profit, it proves that the $300 price tag is pure fiction. Some of these clones are terrifyingly good. They last longer than the original. They project better. They are the ultimate proof that the emperor has no clothes. Finally, you need to stop buying full bottles. You probably don't need a full 100 milliliter bottle. That is a lot of perfume. It will take you years to finish. Most perfumes go bad after 3 or 4 years because the oxygen gets in and ruins the top notes. Instead of spending $300 on a big bottle that will expire, spend $20 on a decant. There is a huge gray market of decanters. These are people who buy the big bottles and syringe the liquid into smaller 5 milliliter travel sprays. You get the real juice. You get enough to wear it for a month. And you don't tie up your money in a glass paperweight. This is how you win. You stop blindly swiping your card because a magazine ad told you to. You stop seeking validation from a logo. The perfume industry relies on your insecurity. They rely on the fact that scent is emotional. It bypasses the logic center of your brain and hits the limbic system, the part that controls memory and emotion. They know that if they can make you feel a moment of nostalgia or a moment of sexual aspiration, you will pay any price. But once you understand the chemistry, the spell is broken. You realize that you are looking at a mixture of ethanol, water, and cheap synthetics, marked up by 5,000%. Smelling good is a pleasure. It is one of the joys of life. But it shouldn't require you to be a victim of corporate robbery. Trust your nose. Ignore the box. Ignore the celebrity. And never, ever pay $300 for scented water unless you know exactly what you are paying for.